Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and today we're going to be talking about purchasing cars. I am going to go over new cars and used cars, and obviously the talking point of the video, and that is when is the best time in the year to purchase a car. Now it's going to be different for new and used, but yeah, I mean, that's going to be the main talking point of the video. If you aren't familiar with me, I worked in the car industry for about 3 years. Part of that time was spent as a salesperson, the other part was spent as a manager, and yeah, I mean, it's that simple. The other funny fact is, as I've made these videos, I've actually researched a little bit before making these videos to see if anyone else has posted on the topics that I've made. And everything that I've said so far is already all over the internet. So yes, that makes me feel dumb to an extent, but also it makes me feel like not as bad, if that makes sense, because I've had a lot of people that work at dealerships give me a lot of crap for these videos, and they really shouldn't, because I'm not doing anything groundbreaking. That simple. Anyways, let's get into the video. And let's first talk about new cars, and then we'll segue over into used cars. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that there's a particular time in the year to buy a new car. People are saying, hey, if you buy it this month, then you're going to get a better deal and all that kind of stuff. And to an extent, there are certain deals that happen seasonally, but what I saw with new cars over the course of the entire year is it typically was almost the same pretty much from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Like, you didn't really get a better deal buying at any particular time in the year. And for some people, you might be like, oh, that sucks. But then for other people, it might be, that's great, because then it makes you realize that you don't have to wait for a specific time to buy a car. If you're ready to buy a car, just go and buy it. That's pretty much what you should do half the time. Now, I do want to delve a little bit deeper into this and talk about certain, not necessarily times in the year, but certain deals on cars that might happen, and that might make it more advantageous to purchase a car at a particular time in the year. And so let's get into that. Now, typically, car manufacturers will have a model year, right? And they'll release it, and then what they will do is then they'll release a new model year the next year. Pretty simple and straightforward. Now, the manufacturers don't sell straight to the consumers. They sell to a dealership, which then sells to a consumer. Well, since there's this middleman, then that causes dealerships to, in some cases, have excess inventory. And because they have excess inventory, the manufacturer is sending them, let's say they have a 2019 on their lot, and then the manufacturer starts sending them 2020s while they still have 2019s. Well, the dealership is obviously going to want to get rid of those 2019s because it's old inventory. So in those cases, right, you might be able to get a little bit of a better deal. However, you need to look at it from a bigger picture perspective. A lot of people say, hey, because the 2020s are out, the 2019s, you're going to get a better deal on it. You're going to get a bigger discount. And that's typically true. However, if you don't keep the car for a very long time, and what I mean by a very long time is probably at least a decade or so, it's not necessarily going to be a better deal for you. Because what I saw in most cars, now this doesn't represent every single car. This is kind of like a cookie cutter statement. But what I saw in most new cars that were late model years is they were typically only discounted maybe another $1,000, $1,500, maybe $2,000 more. It just depended on the car, right? If it was a more expensive car, maybe there was a little bit more discount. If it was a less expensive car, there was probably a little bit less discount. But what I usually saw is the discount was actually about in line with the depreciation from model year to model year, because on most cars, when you go from like a 2019 to a 2020, you're probably going to experience about $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 of depreciation. Again, depending on the car. If it's a really high-end car, there's going to be way more depreciation. If it's a really inexpensive car, there is probably going to be a little bit less depreciation. But what I usually saw is that the discount basically accommodated for that depreciation. So what that means from a consumer standpoint is, if you bought that 2019, you're spending less money, but if you don't keep the car in the long run, you're not really getting a better deal. You're getting about the same deal. So then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot in the sense that you could have gotten that new 2020, which maybe it had a new feature. Maybe it was whatever. Maybe there was just something new about that car that the 19 didn't have, and you kind of just lost out on that because you decided, okay, well, I'm getting a $1,500 better deal. I should go for it. And that's why buying an older model year car isn't always the best, and that, again, there isn't really a best time to buy a car just because of vehicle depreciation and also how often people trade in vehicles. It kind of almost basically cancels everything out. And it gets to the point where nowadays you really need to just buy the car that you want. And when you're ready to buy a car, I would obviously do your research, but chances are you're not going to get a better deal in February as you're going to get a better deal in July. You're not going to get a better deal in December. It's really probably not going to change all that much. All that you're doing is you're forcing yourself to wait. And what I saw for the most part, again, this is kind of like your generalized cookie cutter statement, is it didn't really make that much of an effect. Now, I just want to make a quick clarification before we get on to used cars. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy an old, basically an old model year car, if that makes sense, right? A brand new car that's still on the lot, that's a year old when the new cars are out. I'm not saying that. Sometimes it can make sense to do that. And what you really need to do as a consumer is just do your research, right? See what changes they've made in the car to see which one obviously fits your lifestyle and your needs and your wants better. That's probably more important than anything else with vehicles nowadays, especially with how expensive they are. I mean, I just looked up the average price of a new car in the US and it's about $38,000. So if the average person is going to have to spend $38,000, you better just make sure it's something that you really love and that you're okay with having for a long time, because it's a lot of money to spend. But yeah, do your research on the specifications on the car. That's the first thing you need to do, is what are the actual changes that are happening on this new car from this model year to the next model year. After you do that, then do your research on the pricing on the car, basically model year to model year. If there's a huge price difference, like it has happened before in the past, I have seen it. If it's like, you know, you get 10, I don't know. Let's just say, for example's sake, let's say you get $5,000 more discount on a 2019 than a 2020. And you look at the depreciation on the cars and you see, okay, well, that car is not going to depreciate that much between the model years. Then yeah, maybe it makes sense to get the old model year. So definitely look at pricing, look at the discounts on the cars, and essentially see which one just makes more sense from a financial standpoint in terms of the discount. And if the discount really doesn't, if it barely covers the depreciation, especially if it doesn't cover the depreciation, I would just get the newer car. And, you know, that's what I've done for a lot of these vehicles. Like this Ford Raptor that I'm in is a great example of that. I was looking at 2019 Raptors and I was looking at this 2020 Raptor. Now, for me to buy a 2019 Raptor at the time that I purchased this 2020 Raptor, I could have gotten a better deal by about $1,500. That's it. Now, if there's still 2019 Raptors out there, I bet that there's a little bit bigger of a discrepancy, right? Because they really need to get rid of them. But yeah, it was only about $1,500. And for me, I got 1 year newer, right? I got a custom ordered truck that has all the specifications that I want. And the extra money that I paid on the truck really is probably about how much this truck is going to depreciate from a 19 to a 20. It's not going to be a lot, but it's probably about $1,500 from one model year to the other. And so I'm kind of coming out completely even, because when I go and sell this truck, I'm going to be able to sell it for a little bit more than what I could have sold that 2019 for, even if I got it for a little bit less money. But yeah, that's pretty much my advice on the new cars. And I just want to reiterate everything before I go over to used cars. And used car, the whole segment's going to be pretty quick for this video because there's not a whole lot to say. But do your research on the new cars, see what model years are still available at dealerships. Then after you find out what model years are available, look at the differences between the cars. See how much they've actually changed from one model year to another. And then after you've seen what they've changed from one model year to another, look at the discount difference between the model years, right? And then after you see the discount difference, look up the depreciation on that model that you're going to buy and see if it makes more sense to buy the old model year that's getting a little bit bigger discount, or if it makes more sense to buy the new model year and get the new gadgets and gizmos that come with it, if there is anything new. Now, lastly, let's talk about used cars. And I actually saved some information on new cars because some of it pertains to both, and I just wanted to talk about the information that pertains to both in the used car section. But with used cars, that's a really tough one, because for the most part, there really isn't a best time of the year to purchase a used car. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you buy in February, you'll get a better deal. Like I said with the new cars, there isn't really an ideal time to buy. However, there is one rule of thumb that works for both a new car and a used car, and that is the dealership ownership of that car. And what I mean by that is, how many days has that car been on a dealership lot? And that's very important when you are buying a new car or a used car, actually. And it usually pertains a little bit more importantly to used cars, because dealerships typically don't want to hold on to used cars for very long. Now, the reason they don't want to is a used car is a depreciating asset for a dealership, just like it is for a consumer. The longer they have that car, the less they can sell it for. And it's just that simple. Dealerships, right, they try to buy cars at a lower price so they can mark them up and make a little bit of money. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they have that car for an extended period of time, most cars go down in value. And so if a car goes down in value for you, it goes down in value for a dealership. So dealerships try to go through used cars as quickly as they can so that they don't have to pay a ton in depreciation on that car, so they can make a little bit more profit. Now, how that affects you as a consumer, chances are, if you're looking at a used car at different dealerships' lots, and if one's been there for an extended period of time, typically you're going to be able to get a little bit of a better deal on it. And usually it's already been marked down up front. You can always obviously negotiate. There's nothing wrong with negotiating. But usually dealerships just naturally have to cut the price on the car because of depreciation on the car, and also they just need to get it out of their inventory. At that point, it's just dead weight. They want to get rid of it, and that also applies to new cars. New cars just have a much longer lifespan. And again, this is going to be a little bit cookie cutter, but typical lifespan for used cars, dealerships obviously want to sell any car as quickly as they can. But used cars, 15 to maybe 30 days, and they really want to get rid of it. 60 days, and that thing is just, yeah, they want to get, unless it's like a specialty item that somehow goes up in value or holds its value, they don't want anything to have to do with that car. On new cars, it's usually 90 days, and they're kind of like, what's happening here? And then 180, and they're like, okay, this has been here for a while. And then if a new car has had like a birthday, then yeah, it's been there for way too long. If a used car has had a birthday, then that's horrible. And the dealership probably at that point would do anything that they could without losing a monstrous amount of money to just get rid of that car. And I guess the only way that this pertains to seasonality is in places like here in Utah, right? We get tons of snow, and a lot of times people will trade in rear-wheel drive cars and convertibles and all that kind of stuff coming into the winter. Dealerships know they might sit on that car for a long time. So chances are you could, and now this isn't 100%, but you might be able to get a little bit of a better deal, because the dealership's going to go, who's going to buy this two-wheel drive convertible in the middle of December when it's snowing? Someone, right? But not likely. So with a used car or even a new car, if it's something that isn't necessarily in season, right? If it's a rear-wheel drive sports car in the wintertime, you might be able to get a little bit of a better deal. It's not going to be massive, but you could get a little bit of a better deal. And then, I mean, vice versa. If it's in the middle of summer and, I don't know, a dealership... But the problem is SUVs and trucks just sell like crazy anyways. But, I mean, it used to be where in the summertime, you might be able to get a little bit of a better deal on a Jeep, because dealerships are sitting on them for a long time because everyone's already bought a Jeep at that point, or people are wanting sports cars because it's the summertime, right? So seasonality can help out a little bit, but I would not let seasonality dictate when you're going to buy a car. And the reason that I say that is because if you found the right car and it's the right price, chances are you could potentially find another deal like that. But again, if it's the right car, it's the right price, and you're ready to make a move, I would just make a move. I wouldn't wait. And I mean, from my personal experience with buying cars, and I've bought quite a bit for how old I am, I haven't regretted it. And I've bought cars literally every single part of the year. I've bought cars like this truck. I bought it in November. I had a Shelby 350. I bought that in September. I had a Ram that I bought in April. I had another Ram that I bought in June. I had a Subaru that I bought in July. Another Subaru that I recently got in December. Like, I've bought cars pretty much every single month of the year, and I've gotten a good deal on all of them, to where when I've gone and sold them, I really haven't lost a lot to depreciation. So I hope that that also, from like my personal experience with buying and selling cars from like a consumer standpoint, shows you guys that it really doesn't matter the time of the year. If it's the right car, just go for it. If you're stopping for the first time, please subscribe, comment down below what you think, and then I will see all of you in that next video.